So thank you once again everybody for joining with us, discussing about gambling, the turning point. So this is one of the most bewildering story in the Mahabharat. Why? Because Yudhishthira Maharaj is called as Dharmaraj. His kingdom is called as Dharmarajya. Right? There are two ideal kingdom what we hear in the scripture. One is Ramarajya and other is Dharmarajya. One king, Lord Ramachandra, is questioned that how can he abandon his wife. And second question people ask, how can the great dharmic personality like Yudhishthira Maharaj has the weakness of sending his very wife. He actually placed Draupadi as a wager. That is like the height of stupidity, height of brutality against his wife, his family. How can he do it? So this question will be raised. What I am going to do here, the discussion we are going to do is not so much about the gambling match itself, but it is about what Yudhishthira Maharaj did after the gambling match. The lesson learnt. If you are interested in learning more about the gambling match itself, our friend Radhika Vallabh Prabhu is doing a 7 days or 1 week course on the different controversies of Mahabharat. Yudhishthira's gambling, Yudhishthira's lie, and then the Vyasadeva giving birth by the fisherman. So there are many controversies. We're going to deal with that. But here our main focus would be the lesson learned. Did Yudhishthira Maharaj change after the gambling match? There is a saying in the Mahabharat that there was a tendency in Yudhishthira Maharaj to gamble. Was he a compulsive gambler? What is gambling? We will discuss that as we understand this whole concept. There is a saying, by gambling we lose both our time and treasure. Alright, I begin my session. Here there is a famous quote given by one European philosopher, psychologist, whatever you want to call him, Nietzsche. He says, in the battle we call life, what we need is not goodness but strength. It sounds exactly opposite of what we generally learn. Right. In the battle of life, what we call life, what we need is not goodness but strength, not humility but pride, not altruism but resolute intelligence. That equality and democracy are against the grain of selection and survival. That not masses but geniuses are the goal of evolution. That not justice but power is the arbiter of all differences and all destinies. Right? Immediately almost all the people who are living a life of humility, simplicity, spirituality, fairness, right, would say this is absolutely nonsense. It goes against our philosophy. We cannot agree. Right? All the socialists, all the equalists, they will speak. And apparently where we disagree, in one sense correct also. Please focus and read this. And I know you must have read and understood also, and you almost everyone disagree. Let us go back to the Mahabharat. What did Mahajan Bhishma say? Right. So let us read this first and I will explain the background. O blessed, the course of morality is subtle. Illustrious wise in this world fail to understand it always. That is how he begins. What in this world a strong man calls morality is regarded as such by others. Hear it carefully. Only when the people with resources and power decide and define what is morality is accepted by so. However, otherwise it may really be. But what a weak man calls a morality is scarcely regarded as such, even if it be the highest morality. I hope you understood. In one sense, there is no distinction between what Nedzi is saying and what Bhishma Dev is saying. He says, if something is good, but the person without resources says, nobody takes it seriously. But if something is not so good, but somebody with resources speaks it, somebody with power speaks it, it is taken as if it is the right thing. Who is saying this? Bhishma Mahajan. And whom does he speak this? And when does he speak this? Now when Draupadi was dragged into the assembly, and after dragging her, she raised the question to Bhishma Dev. He couldn't answer. And then they tried to disrobe Draupadi. It was not possible. She was protected. Right? The Lord Krishna sent her limitless sari. She was protected. But the ordeal was not over. She was still in that assembly. She was still hounded by so-called refined people in the assembly hall. No, therefore Kunti called it as Asat Sabhaya. Word Sabha, where we translate it as an assembly, word Sabha comes from the root word Sabhya. Sabhya means refined and gentle. But here Kunti calls it as Asat Sabhaya. It is not the Sabha of the refined and the gentle people. It was the Sabha of the ruffians. It was the Sabha of the oppressors. And what happened to our daughter-in-law? She was insulted and they were hounding her that you are a servant. Now you choose somebody as your man. These people are slaves now. They have no right over you. To the extent where Duryodhan was showing his thighs to Draupadi, asking her to sit on his thigh. And that time Draupadi, can you imagine, all she has gone through is painful oppression. In this condition, she has been protected by Krishna, physical protection has happened, but her questions are not being answered. Then she bows down to the entire assembly. Can you imagine? She bows down to the entire assembly, said, when I came here because of such a situation where I couldn't follow the normal etiquette of offering obeisances. Now, even though it is late, I will still offer my obeisances. She offered her obeisances. And she again raised this question to the entire assembly that please tell me, oh, all the assembled Shreshtas in this assembly, is there a legacy in the Kurukula or in human society, a respectable woman brought in a public place and dealt in this manner? Is it dharma proper? Please tell me. When Draupadi asked this question and she came up to Bhishma Dev, the Mahabharat says the entire assembly had tears in their eyes. They were crying, but they were helpless. Only 4 people did not have tears in their eyes: Duryodhan, Dushasan, Shakuni, and for whom everybody cries in India, he was also not crying. Basically, he was also taking great pleasure in seeing Draupadi's ordeal. Karna. These are the 4 people, they had no tears in their eyes. Draupadi is crying tears, speaking to Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev heard her question and this is what he answered to Draupadi. What is it? In this world, strong man calls morality is regarded as such. Let us go back to the first slide. What did Nietzsche say? In the battle we call life, what we need is not goodness but strength, not humility but pride, not altruism but resolute intelligence. That equality and democracy are against the grain of selection and survival. That not masses but geniuses are the goal of evolution. That not justice but power is the arbiter of all differences and all destinies. Now the question is raised, just because Bhishma Dev is saying, and who is he? He is the Mahajan. Whom is he saying this to? He is speaking it to Draupadi, who is considered as the goddess of fortune from the heavenly planets. Some touch of pleasure, the Lakshmi potency is there in Draupadi. Right? And she is listening to this. Is it right? Philosophically, it is not right. Is it right practically? And that would be our journey for next 2 days. What is the journey? To understand, one is the philosophical reality, and that philosophical reality, how does it apply in our day-to-day life? Is it possible that we remain very, very humble, at the same time assertive? Do we remain smart and not cheat others? Is it possible? So let us see the journey of Yudhishthira Maharaj through the story of gambling match. Very interesting, has so many nuances in our day-to-day life. So the common question is asked, if Yudhishthira can gamble and lose everything including his wife, why shame and penalize the ordinary who tries to gamble? Now gambling is there everywhere. Gambling is as all pervasive as the air in the space. Or in fact, as much as there is a space, that much we gamble. Now gambling is not only about going to a casino. You go to the casino and you gamble. What is gambling? In fact, the COVID-19 and the new policies what every government all over the world are bringing out. What is the policy they are bringing out? They are saying the COVID is going to stay with us. How long we don't know, but certainly it is going to stay with us. The governments, the nations, the institutions, the companies, everybody is accepting the reality, and now they are venturing into the real world. And they have two options. What is the two options? Life or prosperity. Should I protect my life or should I build my prosperity again, stability again? Again, the next question is asked, what is the point in just living if I cannot have a meaningfulness in my life? And if I go for looking for meaningfulness, I may lose my life. The choice is so distinct between the two, life and prosperity. Life and prosperity. Depression, boredom, just bumping to each other in relationship as causing more problem than actually living. Right? So therefore people are venturing into preparing to go out and see what can happen to us. That very decision and walking out is nothing but a gambling. Therefore in this world, in life, we always gamble. We cannot avoid to live in this world if we do not take a step. And the steps are not necessarily certain. Most of the time our steps are uncertain. When I jump into a plane, when I get into a car, when I ride a bicycle or I go into a bullock cart, every ride I go or you go or anybody goes, what does it do? It puts us in a challenging situation of whether I will reach my destination or not. I have personally experienced one of the biggest accident of my life. This was during Ganesh Chaturdashi in 97. It was heavily raining and we chose to return back to Mumbai after doing our book distribution. Right. Some said do not travel because it is Amavasya, dark moon. And some said no, it's okay to travel. And near Kolhapur we had a massive accident. Our bus, there was a head-on collision with two vehicles. Two vehicles had a head-on collision. Nothing happened to us personally, physically. But we had to see 7 dead bodies. One man died on my lap. His head was split into 2 parts. My clothes became so reddish. Right, 7 people on the spot, they were dead. I can't forget that scene. Right. So therefore, you see that there is no guarantee for anybody in regards to what will happen in the future. But the point is, do you want a safety without action? You are safe. The ships are safe on the shore, but they are not meant to be there. Therefore, the story of Yudhishthira Maharaj is not about he being a compulsive gambler. That is not the truth. But the element of putting himself in the riskful situation was there. So therefore, it is very important to understand gambling in the Mahabharat, in the very first chapter of the Mahabharat. Vyasadeva explains, it is not a story book. It is not a mundane history like what we read about the British Empire, we read about the Mughal Empire, we read about the other empires. It is not a mundane story, 1857, 1912, 2014. No, it is not like that. It is itihasa. Yudhishthira Maharaj is a personality who actually experienced this gambling match. And Yudhishthira Maharaj is also a principle where we also go through the same situation. And if you are not willing to take certain risk in your life, along with playing the principle of safety and risks, they should be harmonized. That is what this gambling match teaches us. I remember taking to some children to great Shivaji Maharaj's fort, and they wanted to do, they heard the stories of how they climbed the mountain. We had some friends to do rappelling and mountain climbing. And the coach was telling the children, he said, look, one should be daring, but the daring should have the principle of caring also. Dare with care. Care without dare and dare without care are both problematic. Right? Some person was telling, if you ask someone to run, if they are running for your country, if they are running for your school, if they are running for your college, sprint, 100 meters dash, the parents cannot tell the child, run carefully, run slowly. No, you have to take the risk of falling off, but you have to run to win the gold medal. Life is designed like this. Therefore, the question about Yudhishthira Maharaj gambling, putting in the shame, is very interesting to understand. The Vedas talk about gambling. In fact, the Vedas recommend, and we will come this to tomorrow, Vedas do recommend the king should learn the art of gambling. He should know the concept of gambling and he should know the act of playing gambling also. So now, Yudhishthira Maharaj performed the Rajasuya sacrifice. In that Rajasuya sacrifice, what happened was, Shishupal he gambled his life. He kept on condemning Krishna. He was supposed to speak 99 words of condemnation. If he does 100, then he would lose his life. Cousin of Krishna. It's very interesting. When Shishupal went beyond, there is a limit for adharma. There is limit for illogical behavior. There is limit for, desensitization. Like one of the politician, coming from the Maratha background, right, must have been connected to Shivaji's great ancestors or his people. Name is Prithviraj Chauhan. What did he say? He said, all the gold of the temple should be appropriated for the cause of India's pandemic. Just see, where did he strike? Under the guidance of his master, to cause a conflict amongst the people of Sanatana Dharma who are fighting. Outsiders are not fighting. The Hindus are only themselves fighting. The liberal Hindus are saying, "Arey nikalo sab bahar paisa, take out all the money from the treasury of the temple. What is this all hoarding of the gold sitting in the temple? That should be removed and placed and used it for public." And the traditional Hindus are saying, "No way, this was given to God. It's a deity, you cannot touch it." So what happened? Two people from the same community are fighting with each other. And that is what, unfortunately, they accomplished it. He could have said that all the religious organization, what they should do? They should have a special drive to create funds for suffering people, focusing on one community and causing pain to them, right? So Shishupal, what did he do? He spoke so ill about Krishna, and there is a limitation. Krishna teaches the principle, I will tolerate. You keep speaking what you want to speak, but if you go beyond, if you don't learn your lesson, then I will show my Sudarshan Chakra. He cut off his head right in the most auspicious ceremony of Rajasuya. Rajasuya means a Chakravarti was born. When Chakravarti was born, in that very assembly, the head of Shishupal was rolled off. And Shishupal was the family member of the Pandavas. And when Vyasadeva met with Yudhishthira Maharaj raised this question to Vyasadeva, my dear Vyasadeva, why this happened? This should have not happened in the assembly, in a pious, in a powerful, such a beautiful ceremony where all the great sages were there, Krishna was being worshipped. Why this happened? Why Shishupal had to lose his life? And what Vyasadeva answered? Vyasadeva said, my dear Yudhishthira, unfortunately, Yudhishthira Maharaj did not hear carefully. He heard it, but he translated the word the way he wanted to understand it. Vyasadeva replied, my dear Yudhishthira, this signifies, this is an indication that after 13 years, making you as an instrument, the oppressive rajas, the oppressive kings, yada yadai dharma se glani. Vyasadeva did not say Krishna, he said Kala. Kala is not different from Supreme Brahman. He said Kala will destroy the entire unscrupulous kings who are none other than demonic forces. When Yudhishthira Maharaj heard that I will be responsible, just see, Yudhishthira Maharaj was told by Vyasadeva, you will be an instrument, right? If someone tells, If the Indian government or British government or American government sends their army of 10 people to go and have an operation in somebody else's land, now who is responsible? We blame not those 10 soldiers. Yeah, they might lose their life, because if they are caught by the enemies, they might lose their life. But the enemies don't particularly target that warrior's family. They are simply instrument in the hands of the government. The enemy country will accuse this government, oh India, you are doing this, oh UK, you are doing like this. Right, so similarly here, Yudhishthira Maharaj was not responsible, he was an instrument. Therefore listen here, he said you are a patradhara, not necessarily sutradhara. Patradhara and sutradhara, an instrument and responsible. Upakaran, not uttardayi. But what Yudhishthira Maharaj heard is, I am responsible, I will be responsible for the death of millions of soldiers, and how can I allow this? I will not allow this to happen. And therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj, in the presence of his brothers, and Shakuni and Duryodhan were still loitering after the whole festival was over, he took a vow. What vow did he take? He took a vow, I vow that I will never disregard the orders of my superior, and whatever that order may be, I will not discard it, because I do not want to be responsible for the death of millions of people. He took that vow, कि I will not disregard whatever order they give. One Vaishnava commentator says, Krishna had a laughter. It was a scary laughter. By taking this vow, Yudhishthira Maharaj, who wanted to avoid the destruction, he became the very powerful fulcrum. The Kala looks for the fulcrum to remove the boulder from that side. Now, the boulder is causing such a trouble, we want to start a well. So what do you need to do? You need to have a smaller boulder. And Yudhishthira Maharaj became that fulcrum, without even consciously realizing. Now by his own understanding or misunderstanding, by taking vows without using his intelligence but only sentiments. When we do anything in this world out of sentiments without buddhi, that is another gambling match. We always discuss this. If you ask people, why you want to marry somebody? I love her, I love him. But marriage and relationship, it is not a word. It is a strategy. There are a lot of intelligent investments are there. So Yudhishthira Maharaj took his vows out of sentiments. He had a vow without strategy. He had a vow without intelligence. And he did it abruptly with a good intention. Many historical realities, we did this Bharata Bhagya Vidhata seminar, 5 days. It was just the tips of the iceberg, of so much of oceanic information of this civilization. Right. And one of the greatest tragedies have happened. Good people, because they made their decisions based upon stupid sentiments, good sentiments. Now the good sentiments became cause of a civilizational destruction. So Yudhishthira Maharaj made this decision without realizing, I am simply speeding up. Not speeding up, becoming a very powerful instrument in the hand of destiny, Daiva, so that Kala can use him. Right. So gambling as a game and gambling as one's destiny, We discussed this already. What Yudhishthira Maharaj had not gambled, he was not sitting on that Chaduranga, but the act of gambling already started in the form of forming a destiny for his future. And therefore it is explained, we have discussed this story many times in our Purushartha and Destiny seminar, that children in India were taught when they would grow up 14, 15 to play the game of Chaduranga. The main picture, the title of our seminar, you will see the Chaduranga is there. It's a very fascinating game. In the game of chess, it is purely your intelligence is used. In game of Chaduranga, the strategy is there, teamwork is there, planning is there, and at the same time the concept of destiny is there. When you throw the dice, right, unless you get 8 or 10, you cannot get inside the game itself. And the villagers were telling me, I was in one village, they showed how they play. Once you sit on that game, it is like sitting in the yagya. There is a procedure, till the game is over, you cannot get up. And sometimes this Chaduranga game can go up to 2 days non-stop. Fortunately, when they were playing, they made me sit also. Right, no gambling, there was no gambling, just playing. So within 3 hours the game was over. So the point is, why did they teach that game to the children? To tell them your endeavor, your focus is very important principle in your life, but there is also an element of destiny. When you throw the dice, you don't know what number will come, but the throwing has to happen. Throwing indicates endeavor. What comes when you throw is not within your control. So therefore, it was nothing but game of life, and sometimes people gamble their very life also. Why the gambling was supposed to happen in the Hastinapur? Because Duryodhan couldn't see the prosperity of the Pandavas. He was burning with envy. When he goes back to Dhritarashtra, he said, my dear father, I cannot sleep. He said, I cannot sleep because I still dream. I have nightmares of this whole yajna in Indraprastha, the Rajasuya Sacrifice. What a prosperity. Please read the prosperity of the Pandavas through the eyes of Duryodhan. It's a very interesting part of the Mahabharat. I'll give one example. He says, somebody from some country, our geologists should work on this. Somebody from some country brought a special ant to Yudhishthira Maharaj. What was the speciality of this ant? The speciality of this ant were they would make a ant hill. If you go to the forest, you will find many ant hills. They would make ant hills. But they would make ant hills not from the soil. They would make ant hills from the fine particles of gold. They had the facility, power and special skill to remove gold from the dust and make an ant hill. One may say, how is it possible? No, it could be possible. We may not have access to them. If you ever see a honeybee, the honeybee, the way they collect honey, is there any machine in this world who can crush the flower, extract that nectar from the flower and create a honey? We are not able to find a vaccine for the virus or medicine. When people were talking about going to moon, now they are staying in their kamra, ek kamre mein band hai, right? They are stuck in their rooms and they are talking about what will happen now. Big people are saying let us not worry about what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, because nobody knows what's going to happen. Where is the moon excursion? कहाँ जाएंगे? सब लोग अटके हुए, right? So this was the and this honeys can do that. They can extract. And the beauty of honeybees, please study. The beauty of honeybees, while they are extracting the honey, they also collect the wax. The wax is used to build a home, and honey is stored within that wax. And no power in the world can make that honey leak through the wax. They don't have the container. The plastic container is not there, steel container is not there. If you go and see close by, how can you ever think that this creation happened by chance? There is an amazing engineering skill. Okay, so therefore Duryodhana was mad to see the Pandavas' prosperity, and our Krishna also, is so much ye yatham prapadyante. If you have a hatred, envy, what does he do? He waters that envy to grow more and more. Why does he do like that? Because he wanted to teach lesson to Duryodhana. Are you going through that? Are you changing yourself? So Duryodhana was allowed a special seva in the gambling match to collect all the gift what the Pandavas would receive. Being the cousin of the Pandavas, naturally, there are these big marriages. Sometimes people, they don't talk to each other. But because it is a big marriage, they also can show off. They come as the relative of the particular people who are getting married. Even in their daily life, they may not interact with each other. So Duryodhana came there and he was given that seva. He took that service. Karna was also given seva. Duryodhana was also given seva. His seva was to collect all the charity, all the gift, and he couldn't take it. And he comes to his father, and father sees that Duryodhana has gone yellow. He told his father frankly, openly, unless I loot everything what belongs to the Pandavas, I will not have a sleep properly. And he made a very interesting point. He told his father, he said, my dear father, satisfaction is the enemy of the progress. Satisfaction is the enemy of the progress. Interestingly, this same statement is also made by Lakshmi to Rukmini. But the purpose of making this statement by Rukmini is for, by Lakshmi Devi, is for the Loka Sangra, for the society's sake. I want to earn, I want to become big so that I can share my prosperity with the society. And Duryodhana wanted to grow for basically making his ego big and big and big. And he threatened his father, my dear father, if you do not arrange the gambling match as prescribed by Shukuni, I will give up my life, I will commit suicide. You choose if you want your son or you want to favor the Pandavas. You have to choose. Gambling. Duryodhana was gambling, Shakuni was gambling, Dhritarashtra was gambling, and Dhritarashtra says no but says yes. Very interesting. Dhritarashtra is a typical character. He is called as Pragya Chakshu by Mahabharat. Pragya Chakshu means he has the vision to see. He can see it. But the problem is he cannot implement. He cannot implement. Right? He can see things as clear as it can be. But he cannot move the things. In fact, he goes exactly opposite of that. He communicated to Duryodhana, it is not fair, this is destructive. But eventually he called Vidura, he said, you go and bring the Pandavas for the gambling match. Therefore, he was not basically agreeing to the wicked plans of Duryodhana and Shakuni, but due to innate wickedness in himself. Right. What did Vidura do? Vidura warned his brother Dhritarashtra. He said, this you are inviting death. Remember what I told you, my dear brother, when Duryodhana was born. Please do not do this work. Don't do this. But he was told, no, you go, we are only playing a friendly match. So Vidura left Hastinapur knowing very well the Kurukula's destiny is sealed. They are inviting the Pandavas, just like Kamsa invited Krishna Balaram to Mathura, sealing his destiny, closing his destiny. He was inviting his death to his place. They were not death, but he experienced death because ye yathamam prapadyante. And who is Vidura? Vidura and Yudhishthira Maharaj both are extension of Yamaraj. Extension of Yama. Yama is what? The word Yama is to Yam and Niyam. Yam is to control, to discipline, to keep within the boundary. We are all controlled by Yama. We have a limited time to stay here. How long? Nobody knows. Yama controls our personal destiny. But Yama also creates a legacy based upon our behavior and life here. So therefore Yamaraj also gives advice. He is an advisor in the form of Vidura. But in the form of Yudhishthira, when you do not listen to Vidura, then Yudhishthira Maharaj will come. Therefore Mahabharat, in the very first chapter, it is explained, there are three levels of explanation in Mahabharat. One is the human level, one is the level of the Devas, and the third on the transcendental level. Vedantic view में lesson होता है. And what is the lesson? Yudhishthira Maharaj being the personification of death personality, if you don't listen to advice, then what will happen? Then danda will come to you. Shastra and Shastra. Vidura gives the Shastra and Yudhishthira Maharaj gives the Shastra. Whether it is in English language, magazine, informative book, and also magazine where you use for shooting, उसके परिणाम दोनों एक ही है, right? So he went to call the death personified, the destructive aspect of Yamaraj. So we go back to the original. What happened? Yudhishthira Maharaj was unwilling to be an instrument in the hand of Krishna. He said, no, I don't want to be responsible for the death of people. No. But he became one unconsciously under the impeccable orchestration of the Supreme Lord. Now on the human platform, as we discuss, why did he gamble? The third and the second reason. Although he does not know how to gamble, he cannot deny another Kshatriya's proposal. Yudhishthira Maharaj did not know how to gamble, but he had an interest in gambling. There was some kind of inquisitiveness, right? And as the Kshatriya, if Kshatriya is challenged, the Kshatriya has to accept that challenge even though he may not know how to. That is one reason he gambled. He says that. And second, he had taken that vow that I will not disregard the words of my superior. And the most important one is everything is controlled by destiny and no one is independent. As I said, when we discuss the story of gambling match on a human platform, we certainly do not defend Yudhishthira Maharaj. But you cannot. How can you defend? It is undefendable. Neither Arjuna, neither Krishna, neither Draupadi, nor Bhima, nobody defended this act. So therefore you cannot. It's a weakness on a human platform. It was a weakness of Yudhishthira Maharaj to gamble. He should have not done. He should have taken the vow seriously. You cannot take a vow saying that I will follow my superiors, when your superior is almost like Dhritarashtra. He wants you to be weak. He wants you to be bound by your own rules and regulations so that he can exploit you. It became easier for Dhritarashtra to exploit Yudhishthira Maharaj. So then what happened? As I said, two perspectives in Yudhishthira's decision. One is social and the other is transcendental. What is transcendental and what is social? So the transcendental, the social one is very important for us. The social one is, in this world, do not forget what we discussed in the beginning, the power and the weak. On the social front, it is always seen, unfortunately, it takes great courage to be transparent. It takes great courage to be a true leader. To become a true transparent leader is not easy. In a society, if there is a choice, if there are 10 people serving me, I would prefer taking their service, unfortunately. We are conditioned by that. Just imagine today in lockdown, 4 people walk to your house and your last 3 months working in your kitchen, every day cooking, and somebody came, oh devotee, Prabhu, counselor, my dear Mataji, my dear Prabhuji, I can understand you are going through so much of difficulties, I'd love to serve you. Can we do it? We may say, no, we will manage. But consciously or unconsciously, we want people to serve us. And therefore, corruption, where does it come? When we create a system of exploiting people. Alright, so Dhritarashtra was anyway using this principle of being a senior, and Yudhishthira Maharaj made it more easier for Dhritarashtra to exploit. I have told this many times. When the Pandavas were preparing an attack against the Kauravas, if they would not give back their 5 villages, Dhritarashtra sent a letter. He sent a letter. If you have not known about this story, he sent a letter to Yudhishthira Maharaj. All of them, they are sitting there in the assembly hall, and his letter is read. His letter is read. Letter written by Dhritarashtra. What is the content of the letter? The content of the letter: my dear Yudhishthir, my dear child, I know you are doing very well. I hope everything is fine with you. Now let us come to the issue. The issue is, my child Duryodhan is a stubborn, relentless in his stubbornness, doesn't listen to anybody. And therefore, it is not right on your part to be like my son, to be stubborn and wage a war against my son, who is not going to change. Therefore, rather than being responsible for the bloodbath of millions of people, I give a better proposal, my dear Yudhishthir. What is the proposal? Just like my son is conditioned to rule, my son is conditioned to royalty, my son is conditioned to prosperity, rights like this, And this is what all along people who are oppressed, if they try to retaliate, they are told like this. He said, my sons are conditioned, you are conditioned to live in the forest. Therefore, I suggest you, my dear Yudhishthira Maharaj, you should continue to live by begging. And my suggestion is that don't come to Hastinapur to beg. Because if you come to Hastinapur to beg, what will happen? There will be revolt amongst the people. And therefore, in 1947, when the power was transformed, not the idea, the power was transformed from the white to the brown, right, with the white mentality. And what did they say? They said, let us not deal with the history. Let us rewrite the narratives. Because if we give them true history, then the civilization will be disturbed. And to make the Sanatan Dharmi people feel that you are responsible for everything what's happening with you. Your sati is problem, your dowry is problem, your faith is problem, your temples are your problem, your caste system is problem, your destiny principle is problem, your karma principle is problem, your faith principle is problem, everything about is a problem. But the Abrahamic religions are not at all problematic, progressive. They're very progressive. This kind of narratives were given. If you go to the social science in India, those who are studying sociology, those who are studying psychology in the modern universities, you hear their name Pandey, Tiwari, Shukla, Joshi, Nambudri, and what do you see when they go to this college? Turn out to be a hardcore, disruptive leftist, dismantling everything what their grandparents believed in. Can you imagine? So Dhritarashtra is not simply a person. Dhritarashtra is there in the universities. Dhritarashtra is there in the political field. Dhritarashtra is there in your community also. They will take everything away from you and they'll tell you don't retaliate. It's no worth. You'll be responsible for causing unnecessarily problem. What is this concept of justice? Justice is no important. They will teach you all this philosophy, unfortunately. And when Yudhishthira Maharaj read that, good fortunately, he became wild and angry and upset. But Dhritarashtra planted that seed so strongly. One great Gita commentator, Vedanta Deshika from Sri Vaishnava, he said that was one of the reasons when Arjuna came on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it started working. Arjuna did say to Krishna, Bhaiksham apya loke, my dear Krishna, I do not retaliate the sons of Dhritarashtra. Even if they attack with all their weapons, I will be without any weapons. Let them attack. And hey Krishna, I do not want the wealth of the three world. I don't mind living by begging. Right? And this would have been given a great pleasure to our Gandhiji. Wow, Arjun is keeping all his weapons down. Is giving his cheeks to be beaten again and again repeatedly, not once, 70 times, but no retaliation. But our Krishna is not Lord Buddha. Our Krishna is not Gandhiji. He didn't teach Arjuna, give up your weapon. He said, Uddhishta. He said, Arjuna, rise. Every chapter in the second, third, what does Krishna say? Yuddhaya krita nishchaya Arjuna. Tasma sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yuddhacha. And what is this yuddha? Yuddha is action. Not running away from responsibility, but working with responsibility with the flavor of anasakti. Not anasakti for action, anasakti for what will happen, but proper action in regards to what you are doing. Gita is so brilliant, right? So this is what Yudhishthira Maharaj was cornered by the Kauravas, forcing him to follow the vow which he has taken. He came to Hastinapur to play the gambling match, and he played the gambling match. And then what happened? This gambling match which Arjuna played, which became a powerful instrument for Krishna to establish dharma. What Yudhishthira Maharaj did? The will of God. Krishna had to establish dharma, annihilating the miscreants. It is not that he had made a decision to annihilate only. Before annihilating, again Sanatan Dharma, the principle of Sanatan Dharma, we have discussed this many times in our Ramayana seminar. We are supposed to see the potential transformation even in Ravan. The chance has to be given to Ravan. The chance has to be given to Duryodhan. But how long? When giving chance becomes a problem to the rest of the civilization. it becomes a gangrene. Either you save person's life or amputate his leg. It's a brutal reality. You have to cut off his leg. You may call it as a surgery, but it is nothing but cutting off only, right? तोड़ना पड़ेगा उसके पैर को. So similarly, Duryodhan was a gangrene, a cancer. It has to be removed. But Krishna was trying all the means of changing Duryodhan. So therefore, these two principles has to be interconnected. Therefore, it is called as Drishtikon. Kon is angle. You see from the transcendental angle, you see from the mundane angle. Mundane angle is meant for us how to behave in this world. Transcendental angle is another perspective, because in Vedanta philosophy, everything is also happening with another layer only. There is another layer of reality. But both the realities has to be integrated. So therefore, if Yudhishthira Maharaj was supposed to follow superiors properly, he should do it, not a problem. But at the same time, he should have been alert. And because he was not alert, very soon, for those who are, I was talking to some devotees, I was very inspired from my childhood to study the story, pastimes of great Shivaji Maharaj and Krishna Dev Rai. Right, they were dharmic kings, and their inspiration, their life based upon influence by Mahabharat and Ramayana. So very soon we are going to do seminar on Shivaji Maharaj and his life influenced by Mahabharat and Ramayana. Very interesting subject. Those who do not know about him, they will understand. Those who know about him will understand the influence of Mahabharata and Ramayana, and those who know Mahabharata and Ramayana will get to know that there was somebody even in this age of Kali, were able to inculcate those values and establish a beautiful, powerful, assertive kingdom which taught people to be Swarajya. Swarajya means self-governance, I need to govern my life. It is not others, I need to govern in a cooperative way. And one of the great qualities of Krishna which he taught and Shivaji Maharaj taught is alertness, satarka. What does satarka do? Satarkata, the alertness, sends such an powerful energy. Panic and alertness, they are two different things. If you are panic, what does it do? If you are panicky, the robber will come, or the COVID will come, then you are actually making your immunity system very loose and weak. But if you are alert, you are sending signal to the opposite people that don't dare come here because I am very alert, I have positively prepared. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj was not alert, he lost everything. The first gambling match. And the second gambling match, what happened with the second gambling match was, Yudhishthira Maharaj gambled, lost everything he lost. Then Dhritarashtra realized that I am risking everything, because Draupadi, what has happened with Draupadi, it's great risk, so he decided to give everything back to the Pandavas. He made Draupadi ask for benediction, and Draupadi asked for two benediction: freedom from slavery of her husband, getting back their weapons. She did not ask for the third benediction. He said, no, I can't ask for that. That they will achieve by their own power. Right. And the Pandavas were going back to their kingdom, wherever they wanted to go. Duryodhan came back to his father. Again he threatened him. He said, how can you do this? I won this with all my efforts. As if he went to college, he learned, educated, worked very hard. He goes and presents to his father, I put all my effort, all my strategy, everything I did, and you lose everything in one go. He said, if you do not bring them back, again invite them from gambling match, I will again kill myself. Why did Dhritarashtra not tell? Duryodhana was taking a risk. When you tell a king, if you don't give me, I will kill myself, sometimes the king, rather than you killing yourself, they will kill you. Therefore, Chanakya says, don't go too close to the king and don't stay far away from the king. So he never did that, because Duryodhana was willing to take the risk of saying that I will die if you don't bring them back. He had a greater confidence in his father's weakness that he will call them. He called them. Now Yudhishthira Maharaj is coming back. Just imagine. He's got everything, is coming back. And everybody tried to stop him. Now this is very interesting. Dharmaraj, everybody tried to stop him. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, as if he's haunted, he's coming back. But he's not haunted. He speaks sensible stuff. And if you read that part of the Mahabharat, which our Radhika Vallabh Prabhu will cover in his seminar, as I said, my focus is on transformation of Yudhishthira Maharaj after the gambling match. They're coming back, and what does Yudhishthira Maharaj speak? He said, although I know that it will prove destructive, yet I cannot refuse. Then he quoted a famous example from Ramayana. Yudhishthira Maharaj quotes this example. And this example is spoken by Vaishampayana Rishi, who is narrating Mahabharat to Janamejaya, who is the king of Parikshit Maharaj. He said, my dear Janamejaya, your great grandfather, he uttered this verse. What did he say? He said, although animal made of gold was an impossibility, yet Lord Ram suffered himself to be tempted by a golden deer. Now that's a very interesting episode in Ramayana. Very interesting episode. Mother Sita requested Lord Ramachandra, I see that golden deer, my lord, please, please, can I get it? Either living or dead, I want that golden deer. Lakshmana gives the background to Lord Ram. Right, one Vaishnava poet says, my dear Lord, in your creation, have you ever created an animal or a species which has a golden body? I have never heard, you never heard, you have never created. And how is that you are chasing after this deer? It is not deer, it is the Rakshasas who are playing trick with us. Better we stay here. Ram said, my dear Lakshman, I need to go. It is the first time in 14 years. Janaki has never asked anything from me. I need to go and collect this animal. You think Lord Ram did not know? So therefore the great souls, while they teach the lesson to us, what is the lesson they are teaching? Don't be fooled around something which is not real. No, Yudhishthira Maharaj makes it very clear. He said, indeed the minds of men over whom calamities hang become deranged and out of order. The third point is meant for us. The second point, he is basically controlled by the destiny. If I and you can tell this is will of God clearly, where we have a vision and we understand, it could be the will of God. But if it is spoken as will of God, but it is driven by the ego, it is not will of God, it is the ghost of my ego which is speaking. Right? So many people who are in the leadership position, and especially we discussed this in our seminar on Shraddha and Dharma, how Shraddha has caused so many problems in this world. Faith-centric communities, right, have caused so many troubles. So therefore, here Yudhishthira Maharaj had a clarity. He was recollecting what Vyasdev said as Yamaraj, as an instrument of Yama. he knew that it is too long has been waited and Rudra Shakti has to descend. When a building starts breaking down, however maintenance you try to do, fixing here, fixing there, fixing this, fixing that. In our childhood, we used to play this kite. In our part of the world, the kites would be played not like one day like how the Gujaratis do. It would go for 1 month during the vacation, right? And sometime the kite was so much broken, torn, we used to glue it with different kinds of paper. It would less look like a kite than all that paper being stuck. And then someone who's older to us, seeing our kite, they would just tear it off. Bale to phat khatam ho gaya. Sometime in our ashram also, we, some devotees, they have this habits of keeping their cloth very neglectful, or some are very obsessive. And they have torn cloth and somebody comes from behind, they will just tear it off. It happens. So similarly, here Yudhishthira Maharaj, being that person who tear it off, the civilization was controlled by the demonic forces. They are unwilling to change. And see the party politics in the Hastinapur, you can exactly compare it many people in the modern context also. There are Dushyasanas, there is Duryodhans, there are forces coming from outside. Shakuni, he is come from other place only, playing politics in Delhi. He is not supposed to be in this land, but is doing all hastakshep. Karna was supposed to be the king of some other land, but he is playing politics. Dronacharya is supposed to be the king of Drupada's kingdom, but is sitting in Hastinapur. Who is ruling their kingdom? And Duryodhan, Dushyasana and all these people, and there are so many silent, unspoken prime ministers like Bhishma, Drona, Krupacharya. How relevant is Mahabharat? So they had to be removed, they had to be suspended forever. So therefore, as if forced by some other force, Yudhishthira Maharaj said, I am going to gamble. He said, I am going to gamble. He knew fully well the deception of Shakuni. The son of Pritha came back to sit at the dais with him again. This is what the Mahabharata says. And then what happened? He played the gambling. As he played that match, what was the one dice? He had to throw that dice. If Shakuni wins, the Pandavas will go to the forest for 13 years, including 1 year of incognito. In that 1 year of incognito, if they are recognized, they have to go back to forest for 12 years, again 1 year incognito. In this way, the Kauravas wanted to finish them off forever in the forest, hoping that within 1 or 2 years in the forest they will be killed. Let us not kill them, because we tried, we couldn't kill them. This is the best way to kill them. Gamble them away to the forest. Finish them off, destroy them off. And Yudhishthira Maharaj asked, Dushyasana, Shakuni would always throw, and Yudhishthira Maharaj would ask. Yudhishthira Maharaj would always ask for a particular number, and that number would never come, and that number never came. And Dushyasan, Shakuni, Duryodhan and Karna celebrated the victory of Kauravas, and Yudhishthira Maharaj lost that final dice throw. They are walking to the forest. What they have is their bow, their mace, everything is there intact. But what is not there with them? They have lost their kingdom. They had lost their dignity. And the Kurus wanted to destroy their confidence. Vastra Harana of Draupadi was an attempt to rip off their confidence. Their greatest vastra of the Pandavas was their confidence, their unity, their coordination, their integration. Therefore, I had suggested Sachi, Kishore Prabhu, either we can do gambling or we can do Draupadi Vastraharan. Because Draupadi Vastraharan, the way Vyasadeva defines in the Mahabharat, reading it and understanding with proper explanation is another level only. Draupadi is the character in the Mahabharat, had a great power, resources, courage and devotion to integrate all the relationship, breaking no relationship, her relationship with God and her relationship with family. Such beautifully she integrates. In fact, that prasanga, that episode of Draupadi Vastraharana is the heart of Mahabharat. And there is so much of nuances are there. Right. So that Pandavas are walking to the forest. And their walking to the forest is their journey of transformation. I just gave you the background. Did Yudhishthira Maharaj change? Did he remain the way he was? Is it right to compare Yudhishthira Maharaj to Mahatma Gandhi? There is always this, people send a story, Yudhishthira Maharaj is compared to this, Duryodhana is compared to like this, to the present politician, many present politicians. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, his character, even I believed many times, he is too impractical, he is too reluctant, he is too useless, doesn't have the killer's instinct. And how the transformation took. One of the greatest quality of Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is the great learner. And he learned his lesson. The next 12 years and 1 year incognito became a transformational understanding in his life. And implementing that understanding. Where does he begin that? He begins in the forest only with Bhima. So there are many episodes which proves, like I had asked this question to our children, that who was the smartest of the person in the Mahabharata after Krishna? Right, I had asked, we had some talk with the student. And when you study carefully, you realize, wow, how Yudhishthira Maharaj changed. And where was the changing principle? The changing principle is given in the very Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter. And who is speaking this? Krishna is speaking it. When you read this verse, many times we don't even discuss this verse. What does Krishna say? Dyutam chaletam asmi tejas tejasvinamaham. Jayosmi vivasayosmi sattvam sattvatamaham. I am also the gambling of cheats. I am the gamblings of the cheat, or I am the cheat among the greatest cheaters. And of the splendid, I am the splendid. And I am victory of, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong. So here Krishna, he was instrumental in the transformation of the Pandavas. What is that? Journey of transformation. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So therefore, Prabhupada said this one time, if somebody cheats you, the person who is cheating is a criminal. But somebody cheats second time, it is the person who gets cheated, he is the criminal. Therefore, once cheated is their fault. Twice cheated, it's your fault. So therefore, with this we will stop here and we will understand the transformation of Yudhishthira Maharaj. A beautiful lesson while keeping his devotion, keeping his simplicity, keeping his dharma, how he became practical in the real world. How he harmonized between being good and smart, rather than being brutal and practical or being idealistic and suicidal, Yudhishthira Maharaj became extremely smart, along with continue to remain that person who was full of dharmic qualities. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? So this principle of those who are in the real world, everybody in this world, now the Brahmanas also, the government does not provide them. You are going and working, all the Pandays, all the Shuklas, all the Sharmas, right? Everybody in the real world bargaining with their masters, asking for the salary. The school teachers, they have to change jobs from one place to another place because their master nowadays, now because of the COVID situation, already we see lots of people are facing, those who are too brutal and powerful. They are trying to undermine those who don't have the voice. Therefore, if you don't have the proper immunity system, the mental immunity, the social immunity, the physical immunity, the spiritual immunity, you become an easy prey. So therefore, yes, generally in the world of Varnashram Dharma, when it was functioning properly, it was the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas. Because the Brahmanas and the Shudras were dependent on the society, and therefore they lived a very clean and transparent life of not becoming shrewd and sharp. They were very transparent, these two communities. But the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, to make prosperity and to protect prosperity, they played the role of Samadana Danda Bheda. No? Yes. Okay, last, because there was some lack of connection. What is that? Once again, come back, last part. We will do a separate seminar for Bhishma and his character because it's it's an amazing. We need to know that story. Why Bhishma Dev remained silent? One simple example, he himself told this to Draupadi. It's a folk tale, it is not there in the Mahabharat, but the principle is understood through this story. What is that? When Bhishma Dev was lying on the bed of arrows, the Prabhupada told that story. It is not there in the Vyasa's Mahabharat, like how Rupa Goswami explained. There is a Loka Praman and there is a Shastra Praman. As long as the Lok Praman substantiate the Shastra Praman, such story should also be accepted as a Shastra, and since it has been also narrated by Prabhupada. So when Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows, Krishna asked Bhishma Dev to speak to Yudhishthira Maharaj the nuances of dharma, different dharma, Bhagavad dharma, Stri dharma, Apad dharma, the emergency duties, the Dana dharma, the Vaishnava dharma, the Raja dharma, all different kinds of dharmas. He has to speak all dharmas and help Yudhishthira Maharaj to reconcile all the dharmas. Very challenging. And is sleeping on the bed of arrows. As Krishna requested Bhishma, Bhishma was about to start and Draupadi laughed at Bhishma. And then Bhishma asked, "My dear daughter, why are you laughing?" So then Draupadi said, "My dear grandfather," he said, "I asked you that question. Do you remember in that assembly? I asked you twice about dharma. And what did you say? It is very difficult to ascertain what is dharma. Very difficult to ascertain." He said, "I want to, but I can't. And therefore, how can you now? I could ask you two questions you could not answer. Now my husband is going to ask you so many questions. How will you answer?" So Bhishma Dev smiled. He said, "My dear Draupadi, my blood was contaminated by eating the dushta bhojan of Duryodhan. I was purchased by Duryodhan. The verse is there in the Mahabharat. We will discuss that tomorrow. It is a relevant, for our seminar. Is there in my tomorrow slide. He said, because I had eaten the dushta food of Duryodhan, therefore my intelligence is contaminated. And therefore many so-called transparent journalists, so-called transparent scientists, if they are purchasable, what do? They do change their opinion. Therefore when Krishna came to Hastinapur, what did he do? He said, I will not stay in the house of Duryodhan, I will stay with Vidur. And Krishna told this, it's a very important, the Supreme Lord is very, very alert about where he eats. No, it's very important how people transform your consciousness, positively or negatively, by giving you gifts. And if you take a gift from those people who are anti your thought process, your ideas, your ideologies, is a question of time. Then she says, okay, I understand, that time you could say that your blood was contaminated, but how can you speak now? He said, but your husband Arjuna has removed all my blood. All the contamination has gone. What has left over is pure, transparent character of that Bhishma who loves Dharma and who loves Krishna. Therefore I am qualified. And Draupadi in one sense blessed. She can't bless, but she approved. Okay, now you are qualified to speak. It's a beautiful story. But there are many other aspects also we can discuss. If you have one more question. Wherever, see, if you are living in the Himalayas begging, going around with your begging bowl, that is the time you can actually practice that humility. Rupa Goswami stayed in Vrindavan under every tree, and he told Jiva Goswami, why did you argue with Vallabha Bhatta? This is not place meant for you. You go to that place. He didn't banish him. He said, you go to the place where there is a duality. But here there is no such duality. We don't practice that. So therefore one has to understand where to practice. If you want justice, wherever there is management requires fair, discussion of policies, principles, systems. In relationship, what we need? In relationship, to enhance the relationship, we need humility. But in regards to establishing system, we need assertiveness. What happens sometimes, unfortunately, when we are supposed to establish assertive systems, we talk about, you should be humble. And where we are supposed to be establishing systems, we try to practice humility. So therefore, there is no confusion in this regard. There cannot be any confusion. If you are earning money, if you are doing business, if you and this humility is one of the great principles, even in the real world. Mahabharat explains, humility is the ornament of the powerful and it is the weapon of the weak. We will discuss that tomorrow also. If you are weak with less resources, you should make humility as a strategy. Baba, I bow down. No, it's okay. I have nothing at my disposal. I will choose to not to retaliate. It helps you. And somebody is very powerful, for them it's an ornament. When the great people act humbly, not act their humble truly, they are like that reach their glory reaches to the sky. No? So therefore it is very important. So the two questions what you asked, because the media also is discussing. The first question was why the great Bhishma Dev, that was the first question, na? Yeah, the first question was, about daring, and the second question was Bhishma Dev was asking how can Bhishma, a great Mahajan, keep quiet, and third is the humility and assertiveness. Any other question, or we can stop? Yeah, we can take two questions. Yes. Yes, he was. The question is, when Pandavas took when they got married to Draupadi, they must have taken the vow of protecting Draupadi. So again, it's very interesting. If you see the marriage vows, they are very interesting. They are beautiful. People don't give much importance to them, unfortunately, but they are themselves is a great principle of counseling. So simple again, as I said, that my focus is not to deal with that, but since the question has come, why Yudhishthira Maharaj did not protect Draupadi? The problem is, when Draupadi lost in the gambling match by Yudhishthira Maharaj lost Draupadi also in the gambling match, because Dushasan said, Shakuni said, why don't you, you have the greatest wealth, your wife, usko bhi lagao, put her in the dice, in the wager. He lost her. So then Vidura made a very, very pertinent point. He said, somebody who has lost in the gambling match, how can he own someone who is different from him? Draupadi may be a wife, but she is also an individual. She is also an individual. Therefore, loss of Draupadi cannot be accounted for. It is invalid game. When Vidura made this statement, that caused an uproar in the assembly, right? And then they forced Draupadi to come down. They forced her to come down, and she was made to ask this question, whether she could be waged in the gambling match when the husband has already lost. And you know what again Bhishma Dev did? Bhishma Dev, she asked that question. She asked two questions, one before the Vastraharan and one after the Vastraharan. And we already gave answer why Bhishma behaved like that, but we can dealt in other seminar only. So then Draupadi, when she asked that question to Bhishma, Bhishma Dev said, you know what? Unfortunately, in all condition, wife is always supposed to follow her husband. So by giving that cultural identity, consciously or unconsciously, he became responsible for Draupadi's exploitation. On the other hand, Vidura separated Draupadi from Pandavas in regards to as an individual. It's a very interesting principle what Vidura was talking. Many times, I am not saying all the time, it is not in the Shastra, but that is how unfortunately societies operate in regards to women. That women is always identified with relationships rather than her own self. Please hear this. Women is always identified with her relationship other than her own self. She is the daughter of so and so person. She is the sister of such and such person. She is the wife of such and such person. She is the mother of such and such person. All based upon identity. But what the Shastra say, Shastra when it defines you are full of knowledge, you are full of bliss and eternality. Sat Chit Ananda, there is a self. If that self does not exist, all other connection to that self will not exist. If you are not prosperous in your own self, other self what you have accepted, being a daughter, being a mother, being a wife, one is a cultural identity, one is a biological identity, one is an emotional identity, all those identities will only survive if that lady survives. So our Vidura, being the greatest Pragya Chakshu, Vyasadev in the very first chapter of the Bhagavatam in the Mahabharat says the 6 flags of the Mahabharat, and one of the flag of the Mahabharat is the vision of Vidura, the clarity of Vidura. And both are Mahajan, one is Yamaraj, one is Bhishma. Why are they contradiction? Why there is a contradiction? And there is a human perspective also, and there is a divine perspective also. Very interesting, very beautiful. But the point here is, because they had become slaves, so the Pandavas identified themselves as the slave, and the slaves cannot retaliate. Please study the American history of slavery, the history of the West Indies. Those who play cricket, they know Caribbean islands. Those who are part of the British history, they can study. One of the greatest reality of the slave trade was, a slave had no identity other than being the slave of his master. A slave could produce the children, but they were not considered as his children or her children. They were owned by the master, and the master could choose whatever they would do. So this was placed in the mind by Duryodhana and Dushasana that we cannot. Bhishmadev was there sitting, he could have protected Draupadi, powerful, Dronacharya, Mantra Shakti could protect, but they chose to consciously remain the subordinate of their royal connection to the Kauravas. Why Bhima did not protect? Why Arjuna did not protect? That is a very question asked by the great poets. All of those people give importance to their insignificant dharma. I am the brother, I am the sister, I am the king's servant, and they forgot the greatest dharma of protecting a queen, dharma of protecting an abala, and therefore all of them became less than that vulture Jatayu. Jatayu did not care Ravan was king or not. He is making a mistake, he is going against dharma. I will lay down my life, but I will fight him out. And therefore Krishna, when he met the Pandavas, he decided, he said, anyone who was responsible for what Draupadi went through, they need to receive death penalty. And Krishna gave them death penalty, gave them the chance to change, but they did not change. But the question is raised, then why Krishna did not give death penalty to the Pandavas? Because they are equally responsible. And this one Sri Vaishnava poet says, they were protected only because their connection to Draupadi. Draupadi's Mangalya, I don't know the Mangalya, Mangal Sutra, in Indian culture, when a woman is married, she gets this Mangal Sutra. Mangal Sutra, the Kavach. So that very Mangal Sutra became Pandava's Kavacha from the anger of Krishna towards them. Whenever he saw them, you rascals, you are my devotees and you did this to my Draupadi. But then he said, okay, if I do harm to them, then Draupadi will be hurt. So therefore, only because of their connection to Draupadi, they were protected. But rest everybody, Krishna had taken that vow. You guys did not protect. It's a simple common sense. And you are all thinking about different kinds of dharma. So of course, the greatest adharma happened at Asat Sabha, but the greatest integrated dharma was also established by Draupadi. She is the heroine of the Mahabharat, more than any Pandavas. She comes out with an amazing character. So last question. No, can come back again. Yuga does not matter because the principle of life are eternal. Dvandva, we discussed the duality. Duality is an eternal principle. The battle between good and bad is an eternal principle. Only the place of battle changes, and it is not simply a symbolic reality. In Satya Yuga, the conflict within the living entity was less. There was clarity about good. The Rakshasas and the religious, the dharmic people, they lived in a different planet. There would be battles between the two, having a clarity in regards to what they believed. In Treta Yuga, it became in the same, Bharat Bhumi, Lanka and Kishkinda and Ayodhya. And in Dwapar Yuga, it became in the same family. In Kali Yuga, it happens within the same heart. Alright. So therefore the principle remains the same. The lesson what we learn here, and therefore Krishna's principle, Ram's principle is, if somebody does wrong, don't dismantle them for that one wrong. They have a good side and they have a bad side. The dog story, right? We tell about the bad dog and a good dog. We say it's an African story. It's a story from the Vedas. There are verses, Vashishta Maharshi talks about offering prayers that the dog, hey good dog, you please help me and stop me from this bad dog. So therefore interesting principle is, whether it is Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali, as I said, Yudhishthira Maharaj is a personality for sure, is a historical reality. At the same time, Yudhishthira Maharaj is also principle. No, it's a Siddhanta. It could happen in your house, it could happen in your temple, it could happen in your country, it could happen in your community also. You'll find somebody having the character of Yudhishthira, good, but cornered by his good qualities, willing to submit to his superior's atrocity. Some Yudhishthira may not change only. Rather than changing, they might turn into making that as their character. No, I will not, even if there is atrocity against me and my community, I will not change. So therefore, yes, the same Yudhishthira Maharaj will be judged with the same principle, not necessarily by the principle of Yuga. Thank you. We'll stop here. Thank you once again for all your kind attention. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time at 2:30 Indian time. Hare Krishna.
RG Media YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe.